This is ASMR News. Drift off, wake up, or simply relax with the world's biggest headlines. The FBI thwarted a plot to overthrow the government and kidnap Michigan Governor Gretchen Whitmer. The alleged plot involved 13 members of a Michigan militia who twice conducted surveillance at Whitmer's vacation home and discussed kidnapping her to a remote location in Wisconsin to stand trial for treason prior to the November 3rd election. Several members talked about murdering tyrants or taking a sitting governor, an FBI agent wrote in the affidavit. The group decided they needed to increase their numbers and encouraged each other to talk to their neighbors and spread their message. The investigation began earlier this year when the FBI learned through social media that individuals were discussing violent overthrow of several state governments and law enforcement agencies. On Monday, doctors allowed Trump to return to the White House while acknowledging he hadn't yet reached the critical 7 to 10 day window that doctors watch for with the coronavirus to see whether patients take a turn for the worse. Further, a number of scientists and medical professionals are highly critical of the president's actions since returning, when he removed his mask before joining several people, despite still being contagious. He then tweeted, "Don't be afraid of COVID. Don't let it dominate your life." "I am struggling for words. This is crazy," said Harold Schmidt, assistant professor of medical ethics and health policy at the University of Pennsylvania. "It is just utterly irresponsible." Dr. William Schaffner, an infectious disease specialist at Vanderbilt University Medical School, called the president's message dangerous because it encouraged his followers to ignore basic recommendations to keep themselves safe. "It will lead to more casual behavior, which will lead to more transmission of the virus, which will lead to more illness, and more illness will lead to more deaths," Dr. Schaffner said. Stephen Miller, Trump's top speechwriter and a policy advisor, tested positive for the coronavirus, joining a growing list of presidential aides who have the virus. He is married to Katie Miller, Vice President Mike Pence's communications director. A senior administration official said Ms. Miller, who contracted the virus in the spring and returned to work in May, was tested Tuesday morning and was negative for any new infection. Trump has refused to take part in a virtual TV debate with his Democratic rival Joe Biden after the Commission on Presidential Debates said it would take place remotely after Trump was treated for COVID-19. Trump said the move to virtual was to protect his rival, saying, "I'm not going to waste my time on a personal debate. Sit behind a computer, ridiculous, they cut you off. I'm not doing a virtual debate." His campaign says he will hold a rally at the same time instead. The commission is run and staffed by the two major parties. Biden's campaign said he would participate. The star of the vice presidential debate was a fly that landed on Mike Pence's head and stayed for about 2 minutes, and immediately became a social media sensation. Joe Biden shared a photo of himself with a fly swatter, and Senator Rand Paul joked that the deep state planted a bug on Pence. Otherwise, as newscaster Jake Tapper tweeted, it was a normal debate, which is to say that neither candidate really answered any questions nor landed any punches. Not unsurprisingly, both sides claimed victory for an event that is unlikely to change anyone's mind. . from Arizona to Utah after one man donned a face shield but refused to wear a mandated face mask underneath. The incident was captured on video and shared on social media. Footage begins mid-confrontation with one man wearing a black t-shirt and face mask, shouting curses, pulling at an older man's hair, and then finally punching him. The older man had been asked by a flight attendant to put on a mask, but he refused. Eventually, the older man and female traveling companion were removed from the airplane. The other man was allowed to continue on the flight. The airline's policy requires passengers to wear a face mask and states that face shields may be worn in addition to a face covering, but not as an alternative. A Minneapolis restaurant has quarantined 13 staff members after the restaurant catered a fundraiser attended by President Donald Trump during his visit to Minnesota last week. About 40 contributors paid $100,000 per person to meet the president and hear him speak. Our staff was there to work the party only, and at no point did any staff come in close proximity to the president, the restaurant said. Upon learning of the president's positive COVID-19 test, we immediately enacted a 14-day quarantine for all staff who worked the party. Additionally, each staff member who worked the party will be tested for COVID-19. Coronavirus cases in Arizona declined by 75% after a mask mandate was implemented. From late June to early July, state health officials were reporting more than 3,500 daily cases. However, after the governor ordered that all residents needed to wear face coverings, the 7-day average of infections fell to less than 900 daily by early August. Argentina has the world's highest rate of positive coronavirus tests, with nearly 6 out of 10 yielding an infection, a reflection of low testing levels and loose enforcement of lockdown rules. By comparison, New York State has a population of 20 million, less than half of Argentina's 45 million, yet carries out 100,000 tests per day, 4 times the number in Argentina. In New York State, the positive rate is a bit over 1%. Argentina hit 809,728 confirmed cases on Monday, with a 7-day rolling average of around 12,500 new daily infections. The country, which started strongly against the virus, passed 20,000 fatalities last week. Iran, one of the hardest hit countries in the Middle East, reported a record 239 new coronavirus deaths as it struggles with what officials have called the third wave of its outbreak. The previous record of 235 was set in July. More than 3,500 new cases have been reported on each of the past 9 days. The U.S. Centers for Disease Control and Prevention now says coronavirus can spread from airborne transmission over a distance greater than 6 feet and from exposure to tiny droplets and particles known as aerosols that can remain in the air for minutes or even hours. The CDC says there is now evidence people with COVID-19 have infected people who were more than 6 feet away, and that airborne transmission has occurred in enclosed spaces with inadequate ventilation. Scientists believe the number of infectious droplets or particles produced by someone with COVID-19 become concentrated enough to spread the virus to people in the room at the same time or shortly after. the CDC had deleted a similar notice last month, saying a draft was posted in error because it had not been thoroughly reviewed. Singapore, worried that citizens are delaying parenthood while they struggle with layoffs and financial difficulties, will offer a one-time payment to encourage people to have babies during the coronavirus pandemic. The country has one of the lowest birth rates in the world, which it has struggled to boost for decades, unlike Indonesia and the Philippines, which expect to see a massive increase in pregnancies from their coronavirus lockdowns. Details of the amount that could be paid have yet to be released. Dubai has delayed Expo 2020 by a year, but is still committed to the event. The first World Exposition to take place in the Middle East was delayed due to the COVID-19 pandemic. More than 190 countries are expected to be represented at the Expo, which is now set to take place between October 1st, 2021 and March 31st, 2022, with an expected 25 million visitors. Stocks fell over 600 points on Tuesday after President Donald Trump said he ordered an end to stimulus negotiations until after the November election. The announcement came hours after Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell called for more stimulus to keep the economic recovery going. He said the risk of doing too little in terms of stimulus was far greater than the risk of doing too much. Trump's decision deals a major blow to those hoping for more stimulus to help the country get through this crisis. For jobless Americans, it means they will have to make ends meet with less money than at the start of the crisis, when the government provided a $600 weekly supplement to boost benefits. These benefits ran out at the end of July. A St. Louis grand jury indicted Mark and Patricia McCloskey on felony charges for unlawful use of a weapon when they pointed their guns at protesters outside their home in July, as well as for evidence tampering. The charges filed in July say that on June 28th, Mark McCloskey, 63, pointed an AR-15 rifle at protesters, and Patricia McCloskey, 61, wielded a semi-automatic handgun, placing protesters in fear of injury. The couple has gained national notoriety since the event through appearances on Fox News and CNN, and by speaking at the Republican National Convention in August. White farmers stormed a court building and burnt a police vehicle in South Africa to demand that 2 men being held for investigation for a farmer's murder be turned over to them. Police reportedly fired stun grenades to disperse protesters who held placards reading "Boer Lives Matter." Boer is an Afrikaans word which refers to farmers. The killing of white farmers is a highly emotive issue in South Africa. Some conservative groups say the farmers are victims of a genocide and the government is not doing enough to protect them. The government called the protests anarchic and dismissed the allegation, saying the farmers are victims of crime in remote areas and efforts are being made to step up security. Hours after holding talks with the United States on human rights, Vietnam has arrested an advocate for democracy, press freedom, and the rule of law. There was no immediate comment from the U.S. Pham Duan Trang was detained in Ho Chi Minh City late on Tuesday and was accused of carrying out anti-state activities. Vietnam's one-party communist state frequently jails its critics. Human Rights Watch and Amnesty International have demanded her immediate release. Ms. Trang has been charged with making, storing, disseminating, or propagandizing information, materials, and products that aim to oppose the state of the Socialist Republic of Vietnam, charges which carry jail terms of up to 20 years. Almost 600 were injured when demonstrators clashed with the police in Kyrgyzstan on Monday while protesting the results of a parliamentary election, with reports of at least one fatality. Early results in the election gave the majority of votes to two parties with ties to the country's ruling elites amid allegations of vote buying. An estimated 4,000 people took part in the rally in the capital city, with smaller protests in two other cities. The police moved to disperse the crowds using water cannons, tear gas, and flashbang grenades. On Tuesday, the results of a weekend parliamentary election were nullified to prevent tension in the country, the head of the Central Election Commission said. A Greek court ruled that the leaders of Greece's far-right Golden Dawn, the country's third most popular party in parliament during the debt crisis, were guilty of running a criminal group. Golden Dawn entered parliament for the first time in 2012 on the back of an anti-austerity and anti-immigrant agenda, becoming Greece's third most popular party at the peak of its worst financial crisis since World War II. However, the killing of a 34-year-old leftist rapper by a party supporter in 2013 resulted in a crackdown that led to the arrest of several party leaders. A Chilean police officer was detained for attempted murder after videos appeared to show he threw a teenage protester from a bridge during protests on Friday, sparking anger and a fresh round of demonstrations over the weekend. The footage appeared to show a scuffle before the boy, 16, fell headfirst over the side of a bridge. The prosecutor's office also said the officer involved abandoned the victim and gave false information to the prosecutor's office. The regional chief of police said that the teenager lost his balance and fell, and that the officer immediately notified emergency services. The boy was admitted to a medical care center. Two ex-British alleged Islamic State suspects have appeared in a U.S. court charged over the killing of 4 American hostages in 2014. Alexander Coty and El-Shafi El-Sheikh are accused of belonging to an IS cell dubbed the Beatles, involved in kidnappings in Iraq and Syria. The men, who had been in U.S. custody in Iraq, previously denied the charges. Russian President Vladimir Putin commented that, as far as the candidate from the Democratic Party is concerned, we also see quite sharp anti-Russian rhetoric. Unfortunately, we are used to this. But he added that presidential candidate Joe Biden had made what he regarded as encouraging statements on New START, the last major nuclear arms pact between Russia and the United States, which is due to expire in February. The The August 4th explosion in Beirut, Lebanon, that killed more than 190 people, was one of the largest non-nuclear blasts in history, about 1/20th the size of the atomic bomb that leveled Hiroshima in World War II. The UK's Sheffield University found that the size of the blast at the port was the equivalent of between 500 and 1,100 tons of TNT. The Hiroshima atomic bomb was the equivalent of 20,000 tons of TNT. Saudi Arabia's former intelligence chief and ambassador to the United States, Prince Bandar bin Sultan bin Abdulaziz, slammed the Palestinian leadership for criticizing the decision of several Gulf states to normalize ties with Israel. The prince labeled criticism by Palestinian authorities as a transgression and reprehensible discourse. The Palestinian cause is a just cause, but its advocates are failures, and the Israeli cause is unjust, but its advocates have proven to be successful. That sums up the events of the last 70 or 75 years, he said. A North Korean diplomat who disappeared in Italy in 2018 has defected and is living in South Korea, a lawmaker says. However, there is concern for his teenage daughter, who is said to have returned to the north. Italy's foreign ministry says she was repatriated to the north in February 2019 at her own request after her parents went missing. The diplomat, who is the son and son-in-law of high-ranking North Korean officials, disappeared with his wife after leaving the embassy without notice, just before his term as North Korea's acting ambassador to Italy was due to end. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern vowed Monday to ban conversion therapy, which aims to change a person's sexual orientation if returned to power, as widely expected, in polls on October 17th. The globally discredited treatment, which harms and stigmatizes members of the lesbian, gay, bisexual, or trans community, has adherents in New Zealand, however. A recent survey showed more than 1 in 6 respondents reported being subjected to the efforts of psychiatrists, psychologists, or counselors to stop them from being trans or non-binary. The co-creator of sitcom Schitt's Creek criticized Comedy Central India for cutting footage of him kissing another man out of a scene it posted. It was the only kiss to have been removed from the scene, which also features 2 women kissing and a woman kissing a man. Dan Levy said the censorship of gay intimacy made a harmful statement against his show's inclusivity message. The episode features a game of Spin the Bottle, in which various characters are dared to kiss each other. The plight of sex workers in Nigeria is depicted in a new Netflix film entitled Oloture, the name of a Nigerian journalist who went undercover to expose sex trafficking in the country. Human trafficking is a $150 billion industry worldwide, with about $100 billion generated from sexual exploitation, according to a 2014 report by the International Labour Organization. The International Organization for Migration, or IMO, estimates that over 90% of the victims trafficked from Nigeria are women. The film shows how they are recruited and trafficked overseas for commercial gain. Finnish Prime Minister Sanna Marin has let a 16-year-old girl fill her seat for the day to focus on gender equality as part of the United Nations Day of the Girl campaign. It is the fourth year Finland, which frequently ranks at the top of countries for gender equality, has taken part in Plan International's Girls' Takeover, which allows teenage girls to step into the shoes of leaders in politics and other sectors for a day. This year's focus is on promoting digital skills and technological opportunities for girls, with Kenya, Peru, Sudan, and Vietnam among the countries holding their own swaps. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson promised to build back greener, announcing a new investment of £160 million sterling, or $208 million in offshore wind energy. The investment will be used to upgrade ports and factories for building turbines, setting a target for wind to produce enough electricity to power the equivalent of every UK home by 2030, while creating 2,000 jobs in construction and supporting 60,000 more. Reports have surfaced that rocket fuel stored in military facilities caused water pollution in Russia's Kamchatka Peninsula that caused sea creatures to wash up dead on beaches. In September, surfers reported stinging eyes and said the water had changed color and developed an odor. Then, locals reported seeing large numbers of dead marine species, including seals, octopuses, and sea urchins washed up on a black sand beach popular with tourists. Astrophysicists Roger Penrose, an Englishman, Reinhard Genzel, a German, and Andrea Ghez, an American, won the Nobel Prize for their work on black holes. Penrose, an Oxford University mathematician, was awarded half of the approximately $1.1 million prize for proving that black holes must exist if Albert Einstein's theory of gravity, known as general relativity, is right. The other half was split between Genzel and Ghez for their decades-long investigation of dark matter in the center of our galaxy, gathering evidence to determine that it was a supermassive black hole. Ghez is the fourth woman to win the Nobel Prize in Physics, following Marie Curie in 1903, Maria Goeppert-Mayer in 1963, and Donna Strickland in 2018. The Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded on Wednesday to Emmanuelle Charpentier of France and Jennifer Doudna of the US for their work on the development of CRISPR-Cas9, a method for genome editing, the fifth and sixth women to win the prize. The announcement marks the first time a science Nobel has been awarded to two women. CRISPR-Cas9 is a kind of genetic scissors that allows researchers to alter the DNA of animals, plants, and microorganisms with extremely high precision. In literature, the Nobel Prize was awarded to American poet laureate Louise Gluck for her unmistakable poetic voice that with austere beauty makes individual existence universal. Gluck, born in New York in 1943, has written about the challenges of family life and growing older, including The Wild Iris, for which she won a Pulitzer Prize in 1993, and Faithful and Virtuous Night about mortality and grief from 2014. Warner Brothers has delayed the Batman movie until March 2022 from its originally scheduled release date of October 2021. In addition, a new version of the sci-fi classic Dune has been delayed from December 2020 until October 2021. In contrast, the release of Matrix 4, starring Keanu Reeves and Carrie-Anne Moss, has been moved up from April 2022 to December 2021. Eddie Van Halen, considered one of the greatest guitarists of all time, and whose band helped define the rock genre in the 1970s and the 1980s, died on Tuesday following a bout with cancer. He was 65. The band won a Grammy for Best Hard Rock Performance in 1991 for the album For Unlawful Carnal Knowledge. It was inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame in 2007. Johnny Nash, whose I Can See Clearly Now hit number 1 on the charts in 1972, has died at the age of 80 of natural causes. Nash, a pop singer, had a hand in the development of reggae, having signed Bob Marley early in his career to an exclusive contract at JAD Records. The Seattle Storm dominated the Las Vegas Aces 92-59 to win the WNBA championship 3-0. Breanna Stewart, who was voted the finals MVP, had 26 points and 4 rebounds. Ageless Sue Bird, a week shy of her 40th birthday, had 7 assists and 5 points to celebrate her 4th championship. Bird joined the league in 2002. At Roland Garros, unseeded Iga Swiatek will meet 4th seed Sofia Kenin in the women's singles finals of the French Open on Saturday. In the men's draw, top seed Novak Djokovic will meet 5th seed Stefanos Tsitsipas for a spot in the finals against the winner of the match between 2nd seed Rafael Nadal and Diego Schwartzman. This is ASMR.